Going?
Yeah, we're good to go.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. It's really wonderful to be here and to see that we have a good amount of people joining today. And big thank you to Max and everybody who helped make these college success workshops happen. And so, real quick, while everybody's joining in, please do take a moment to download the 5-year plan template. And also, if you'd like the presentation slides, please take a look in the Zoom chat for the links. And so during today's workshop, our goal is to fill in this 5-year plan template, and you may not finish in our whole hour, and that's okay. So the goal is to help you get started. And of course, if you have any questions as we go through, you're more than welcome to shout out or type in the chat, and I'm happy to answer. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. So once again, welcome everybody. My name is Ashley Erickson, and I am a professor in the Department of Engineering at Diablo Valley College. And so today I'd like to share our workshop on how and why to make a 5-year plan. And so our goals for today. So first, we want to just kind of generally understand, how and why would we actually make a 5-year plan? Why is this important? Next, we'll talk about how to write what's called a SMART goal and how to break your goals down into doable step-by-step milestones. We will also have you fill out the template that's available and start creating your own 5-year plan. And we'll also cover some additional tips and ideas for you to consider to help you make effective and meaningful goals. And in case anybody missed it, I'll put the links in the chat one more time. The first link there is the link to our 5-year plan template. And as far as Zoom goes, if you do have questions as we go through this workshop, please do feel free to unmute and ask, or you may also type in the chat and we'll do our best to answer all the questions as the workshop progresses. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in. So first, a couple things about me. So my name is Ashley Erickson, and I'm actually a Bay Area native. So I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm a foodie. I'm a fan of all things nerdy. And on paper, I'm a chemical engineer. So I did my degrees in chemical engineering. And along the way, I also worked on biosensors, optics, process engineering, manufacturing, and hardware before starting to teach at CSU East Bay and now at DVC. So I'm really happy to be here and share what I've learned about 5-year plans with all of you. So it's kind of funny to reflect back on my very first day at work as an engineer. So here's me. On my very first day, I was just leaving the office. I had just finally graduated with my PhD, and here I was in front of the Intel fab in Arizona. And, I looked pretty happy in that picture, right? But let me share what was going through my mind. So my first thought was, wow, it's really warm in Arizona in July. I mean, it was definitely over 100 degrees Fahrenheit in that picture. But, it's cold in the building, so long sleeves, long pants. Next thing I realized was that getting my engineering degrees, it didn't automatically make me happy and successful. Like, here I was, I just finished my degree, I started this exciting job, but yet deep down, I was kind of terrified and I was nervous and I wasn't sure what to do next. So I wasn't, you sometimes think as a student that once you graduate, once you get your degree and your job, everything will be perfect, everything will be happy. But in this case, I wasn't completely in that ideal place just yet. So then I started to think, okay, fine. How do I set myself up for success? Nobody teaches you in school what to do after you've gotten your degree and you're starting a new career. And so I started to think and talk to mentors and try to figure out, okay, how do I set myself up for success? And so that kind of leads us into today's workshop. One of the earliest bits of information I found was that many people recommend making a 5-year plan. The idea of a 5-year plan is that it's an incredibly useful tool to plan your next 5 years. It turns out that many people struggle to achieve their goals because, they don't know what they want. Or maybe you do know what you want, but you didn't make a plan. And research also shows that you are 42% more likely to achieve a goal if you write it down, remind yourself of that goal, and visualize yourself accomplishing it. So that brings us to our why. Why 5-year plan? A 5-year plan is a collection of goals and plans for the next 5 years. And most career coaches and professionals very highly recommend making a 5-year plan as part of your own personal development and growth. And for our workshop, I've prepared a template for everybody. I put it in the chat one more time. And so what we'll do is we will fill out this 3-part plan. And we'll also learn how to write more effective goals and break our bigger goals into smaller, more manageable pieces. So once again, our disclaimer. It may take a little longer than 1 hour to complete the plan. I know when I first started doing these, I would spend a long time really thinking about it, and that's okay. So use this workshop to get started and get some ideas. And I would highly recommend that you take the time to go back and finish up your 5-year plan when you have some time. You don't have to have everything figured out perfectly, but if you have a general idea of what goals you'd like to achieve in the next 5 years, you're a lot more likely to be successful. Also, we will be able to make this stuff available to participants after the session. And you're also welcome to send me an email if you have any other questions. Are there any questions so far before we move on to the plan? All right, let's go ahead and jump into our template. So in part 1 of our 5-year plan template, what we're doing here is we're trying to essentially look back and look forward. So the idea is you want to think about, where were you 5 years ago? Where am I now? And where do I want to go in the future? Let's see, someone's asking for my email. I'll put it in the chat for everyone. Okay, so, oh yes, there's another question. There's a hand raised. I'm sorry, was there a question? Oh, maybe not. Okay, you're also welcome to type questions in the chat as well. Okay, so the idea with the first part of the 5-year plan is you want to think about, where were you 5 years ago? And then for each of these categories, you give yourself a score. Okay, like for education, maybe 5 years ago, maybe I was still in high school. Maybe, I was still learning stuff. I wasn't quite finished yet. Maybe I give myself a 5. And then today, suppose you're enrolled at DVC or another community college. Maybe you'd give yourself like a 7. You're heading in the right direction. And then maybe the score you want in 5 years Well, maybe you want like an 8 or a 9. So the idea here is to think about how far you've come and where you'd like to go next. And maybe for some of these categories, maybe your number isn't necessarily going to increase. Maybe some of them you'll stay the same. Maybe you just want to maintain. But the idea here is to just think about, where would you like to be in the next 5 years? Maybe you could say, I want to transfer to a 4-year school, right? Maybe you want to transfer to a 4-year school and maybe finish my BS degree. So that's one example. But again, the idea here is for you to just go ahead and give yourself a moment to fill in these numbers. Give yourself a score for 5 years ago, today, and what you want in 5 years. It doesn't have to be 10 for every column. You give yourself a score and think about what do you most want to experience growth in. So please go ahead, take a few minutes to work on part 1 and go ahead, give yourself some numbers and write down a few comments about kind of what are your thoughts for education, career, family, fun, and health. While everyone's doing that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Are there any other questions in the chat or on Zoom if anybody has questions on this? So once again, remember, you do not have to have everything perfectly figured out. Maybe for some of these categories, you aren't sure, you just want to maintain. So maybe you give yourself the same number. That's okay too. The goal is to think about where you'd really like to focus in the next 5 years.
So I had a question for you.
Yes, please go ahead.
So I noticed from because I'm in one of your classes that you went from chemical engineering, is that correct? To now you're doing more programming based. So what made you make the switch into doing that?
Yeah, that's a great question. The question's asking about me personally. Initially I was a chemical engineer, and now here I am as a professor teaching programming and engineering. And for me personally, deep down, I always wanted to become an instructor. And I think there was a little bit, for me at least, there was family pressure to become an engineer because teachers generally are underpaid, underappreciated. My mom was a teacher and she's basically like, oh, no, 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 you are not becoming a teacher. You need to go be an engineer like your dad, go make lots of money because you're going to be miserable as a teacher. You don't want to be a teacher. And so deep down, I always wanted to teach, but instead I went down the engineering path first because I also really liked engineering. And so for me, I actually did sit down and make one of these plans. And at one point in my engineering career, I became burned out. And I decided, you know what, I've had enough of engineering. I really want to go teach. And so I actually did put together a plan for transitioning from engineering into teaching. And that also helped lead me to where I am today. So again, it depends on what you want and what kind of would make you most happy with your career as well. Does that
Thank you
answer
for
the
sharing.
question?
Yes. Yes, thank you for sharing.
Sure. Any other questions I can help with? Okay, so let's go ahead and move on, just in the interest of time. If you have not fully finished these numbers, that's perfectly okay. I just want to make sure that we have finished walking through all parts of this template. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to part 2 of our plan. And so part 2 of our plan is specifically talking about taking these ideas and turning them into what's called a SMART goal. And taking the ideas of where you want to go, turning them into a plan. So some of you may have heard of SMART goals before. When you're writing goals, it's very important that you make sure the goal you set is something you can actually accomplish. And one of the best ways to make sure that your goal is a strong goal that you're likely to achieve is you should try to write goals which are SMART. SMART here is an acronym. SMART stands for S for specific, M for measurable, A for achievable, R for relevant, and finally T for time bound. So the idea here is that you want to write a goal that meets all of those requirements. Let's do an example here. Suppose I had a goal that, I want to eat healthier. That's a good goal, right? I think after the holidays, probably all of us could potentially eat healthier. But that's not a very specific goal. What does healthier mean? Does that mean I go on one of those fancy diets like keto or low carb? Does healthier mean I just eat less calories? Does healthier mean I do like vegetarian or eliminate certain foods? Like, this goal is not that powerful. But what if instead I wrote the following goal? I will eat at least 2 servings of fresh vegetables every day for the next year. Notice how much more powerful that is. At the end of every day, I can check and find out, okay, did I have my 2 servings of fresh vegetables? No. Did I accomplish that goal? And by the end of the year, I will immediately know whether or not I achieved it. It's also very specific and relevant. It's a very specific target, very easy to tell whether or not I hit that goal every single day. Any questions so far on SMART goals? Let's go through a couple examples that might be similar to stuff you may put on your plan. So in this table, we have some examples of, I put okay-ish goal. It's a good goal, but it's not a SMART goal. And then in the right-hand column, I have rewritten that goal as a SMART goal. So for example, an okay goal, I want to manage my time better. Very good goal. I think many of us want to manage our time better. But how about a SMART goal? Every Sunday evening, I will spend 20 minutes making a plan for next week. And I will schedule time to complete all of my work, assignments, and other key tasks. Which one do you think you are more likely to achieve? Number 1 or number 2? Which one would it be easier to tell if you achieved it? Yeah, people probably are thinking number 2, right? Is immediately okay, this is a very specific thing I can do to manage my time better. Maybe it's different. This is just an example. You might try some other strategy for time management. This is just an example. How about another one? I want to get more exercise. Well, maybe you say every morning I will spend 30 minutes walking, running, or lifting weights. You got to do something, right? Every morning you will immediately know whether or not you did one of those things. Or I want to improve my grades. Also a very important goal. Instead, maybe you could say every day after lecture, I will spend 30 minutes reviewing the material, and I will follow up with the instructor about any questions I have. That will probably help improve your grades. Maybe there's some other goals you might want to do with that one, but it's very specific. finally, last one, I want to get a degree in engineering. Again, just an example. Very good goal, but which degree? When? You know, how about within the next 5 years, I will complete a bachelor's in mechanical engineering and maintain a minimum 3.0 GPA. That's quite a bit more specific. And it'll be a lot easier to track your progress as to how close you are to achieving that goal. So once again, I'd really like to emphasize writing SMART goals. And in part 2 of your plan, your task is to fill in the table with at least one education goal and at least one career goal. You can try to write other goals too if you'd like, and whichever goals that are most important to you. I would encourage you to at least try one education goal and one career goal as a starting point. So notice what you would do is you would write your goal in the left column. And then you can start breaking the goal down into milestones. Milestones are basically checkpoints, and you can use them to see whether you're on track. So maybe you work backwards and you say, okay, well, 5 years from now, I want to complete my degree. So that means 3 years from now, I'd probably need to be transferred into that 4-year engineering school. And I definitely want to be maintaining my GPA target. And then you back off another couple years to 1 year. Well, what would I need to do so that I can transfer 3 years from now? Well, within 1 year, I probably want to meet with my DVC advisor and map out a plan to make sure that I can transfer on time. And maybe I also continue to work towards keeping that GPA. Notice how by breaking these bigger goals into smaller pieces, they become a little bit less overwhelming and they start to feel more doable. So let's go ahead and pause a moment. Let's give everybody a couple minutes to start writing down some SMART goals. Again, do the best you can to make this goal a SMART goal. And what we'll do is we'll pause for questions. So if anybody has a SMART goal to share or needs help creating one, please feel free to shout out or type in the chat. And if you have any other questions about part 2, I'm more than happy to help answer those. Any questions so far, or anybody writing a SMART goal that they'd like to share? Yes, I see a hand raised.
Hi. Yeah, I don't know how to, I don't know where to start. Sorry. Really overwhelmed here.
No problem. Is there a certain goal or a certain thing that you would like to improve that maybe we can put together a SMART goal for?
College degree.
College degree. Yeah, that's a great one. So in this case, are you looking to earn like an associate's or a bachelor's degree, or which kind of degree?
Advanced degree. You probably have a PhD to teach, right?
Yes. So depending on if you want to teach at like university, typically you need PhD. At community college, you can potentially get away with a bachelor's degree. So it depends on where you want to teach. But generally, if you want to become like a professor, then you would need a PhD degree. Yes.
I'm interested in the engineering route, so I don't know how advanced that degree is.
Nice. Yeah. So typically for engineering specifically, you would start out by earning the BS degree, which typically it's about 4 years full time. And then after that, you can either get a master's and then a PhD, where master's is another 1 to 2 years. And then PhD is typically 4 to 5 years. Or you can do what I did and go straight into the PhD program from a bachelor's degree. And so typically after completing a bachelor's degree, PhDs typically take really kind of anywhere from like 4 to 6 years, depending on what you're doing. So, fitting all of that into a 5-year plan might be a little bit tricky. You might want to first start out with thinking about where you are relative to the bachelor's and master's degree, and then figure out, okay, maybe 5 years from now, I want to be done with a bachelor's degree. Or maybe I want to be kind of somewhere between maybe applying to graduate programs or just starting in a graduate program.
I've satisfied all of the GE requirements at DVC, so I'm focusing on major specific classes. So I foresee that track to take me, to keep me longer at DVC because the maths are sequential.
Yeah,
So
definitely. So if you're somewhere kind of here.
Yeah.
So probably
right.
for your 5-year plan, you may want to kind of do it as if you're finishing up at DVC, maybe you'd want to be set up, you figure out what pace you can take the courses at. Like if you take them full-time or part-time, you could maybe meet with an advisor and figure out, how to plan that. So I would say maybe for that case, if your goal is to complete an advanced degree in engineering,
Good boy.
maybe here your 5-year plan would be, being on track to complete the advanced degree, be on track to complete the advanced degree by, some date based on your pacing. And then maybe being on track would mean that your BS degree in progress or finished. And maybe you've started to identify graduate programs of interest.
Good boy, Judy. Good boy, Judy.
So in this case, you could break that goal down into milestones, where maybe your 1-year milestone could be, meeting with the advisor and confirming the plan. And then maybe your 3-year milestone could be that maybe you're either finishing up at DVC or you're transferred in to that 4-year program.
Sorry, 3-year would be finishing at DVC and transferring to the BS.
To the BS program, yes. Again, I'm just kind of throwing numbers out here. So of course you would want to confirm with an actual advisor for your specific situation. But again, these are just kind of general milestones. And then maybe your 5-year milestone, maybe by then you'd be either partway or fully completed through your BS.
Sorry, 3-year finishing at DVC and transferring and transfer.
Yeah, and then depending on pacing, after about 2 to 3 more years after transferring, you probably will have finished if you were a full-time student. So you'd be either partway or fully complete to your BS degree. And then by then you'd also want to be identifying the PhD or master's programs of interest. So you'd be researching those programs, maybe contacting professors to work under, stuff like that. But of course, if you want to talk further about grad school, I'm more than happy to give you more specific advice if you shoot me an email.
Okay.
It's some stuff is very specific to engineering, so I don't want to drag everyone in this call into it. But I'm more than happy
Thank you
to
so
discuss
much.
if you shoot me an email.
I'll follow up with you about that. Thank you.
Sure. But yeah, definitely breaking the goals down into milestones like this can totally help and make it a lot easier to figure out where you need to focus. Anyone else have questions about the breaking goals into milestones or writing a SMART goal? Okay, well, in the interest of time, let's go ahead and move on to part 3 of our plan. And again, you do not have to have everything finished today. The goal is to get you started. So I highly recommend you take the time to fill in that plan and write as many SMART goals as you can. So let's go ahead and move on to part 3 of our plan. I would argue that part 3 is kind of the most important part. In part 1 and part 2, we've kind of identified what we want to achieve. And in part 3, we're starting to think about how we achieve that goal. And so you'll notice in part 3 of our template, what I've done is I've created a table for you. And this table is all about taking action. At the end of the day, achieving a goal is doing very strategic tasks on a regular basis to work toward that goal. So the question here is, what do you need to do in order to reach those goals? So for each of your goals that you have identified, you want to write down at least one thing you can do to help achieve that goal. And specifically, you want to look at what can you do right now? What can you do every day, every week, and every month to help you make progress? So for example, with the education goal, what could you do right now to help me reach my goal? Maybe you book that appointment with your advisor, right? Maybe it's something else. These are just some ideas. What could you do every day? You know, maybe you ensure all your assignments are completed. How about every week? Maybe every week you implement some of those time management strategies. Every week you make a plan to manage your time. And even like every month, maybe you could connect with a mentor. Maybe you could read a book, learn a new skill. You want to think about how can you create smaller goals and smaller milestones to help you achieve that bigger goal. And ideally, you want to make these into SMART goals. So let's just look at one more quick example for everyone. And this is just an example about completing that bachelor's degree in engineering. And again, this is just a sample. So of course, you could adjust as needed for your own goals. So, you know, what could you do right now? Maybe you book an appointment with that advisor. Maybe you identify some family, friends, or mentors that can help keep you on track. This is a really good one. I highly recommend this last one. What if you search for jobs online? Pretend you already had that engineering degree. Find your dream job. Then make a list of skills and topics you need to know in order to be qualified for that dream job. If you know what skills and things you need to learn, then you can work backwards and reverse engineer some goals. So for those who maybe aren't quite sure what you want to do 5 years from now, maybe you just think about what type of jobs would you like to do? And what sort of skills would you like to learn? And so again, some more examples for every day, every week. You know, the idea is break that bigger goal down into smaller things that you can do on a regular basis to help achieve that goal. So we'll go ahead and pause here for a minute and give everybody some time to start writing down some of those ideas. Again, you do not have to have everything perfect. You do not have to have everything figured out, but start thinking about it. See if there's some little things you can do every day to move you in the right direction. Are there any questions I can answer about part 3? And once again, just a reminder, as much as possible, try to make these into SMART goals. If we look at our SMART acronym again, try to turn them into SMART goals that you can work on a regular basis. All right, we'll pause just a couple more minutes, let everybody start writing. Yes, I see the hand raised.
And a little pipe and some paper.
I created a vision board, so I'm excited to fill out these templates and get everything in writing, because the vision board was helpful to identify like what my life looks like in 5 years. But I'm excited about making like an actual path of action.
Yeah, that's a great comment. Vision boards are really interesting. I don't know if others have heard about those, but the idea is that you kind of create an area where you have pictures and things posted that you look at that remind you of your goals and help you visualize your goals. And that can also be a really helpful tool. And I think those are great, and definitely use those if that helps you. I think in conjunction with the vision board, having specific things that you build into your daily routine, that will also really, really help. So I encourage you to try as much as you can to create a few SMART goals that you can do on a regular basis to help you achieve that bigger goal that you're looking for. Let's pause just another minute, let everybody finish writing down some ideas. Again, you do not have to have it all figured out today. So try to get a few ideas down. And I highly recommend that you go back and fill in the details as much as you can. All right, are there any other questions I can clear up before we move on? Okay, well, in the interest of time, let's go ahead and move on to the next topic. And if you do have questions, you're welcome to shout out or type in the chat as well. Okay, so the last thing that I would like to share in today's workshop is additional things to consider as you work on your goals. And so these are just kind of general bits of advice that we often give to students that are helpful. And some of these are also based on my own experience. So just some things to think about as you write your goals. Okay, so first thing to do, plan your classes carefully. So I did not realize this when I was a student, but there is an official definition for what 1 unit of classes is worth. It turns out that for a class to count as 1 unit, it should require approximately 3 hours of work per week for that 1 unit. So 1 unit of class, well, that equals 3 hours of work per week. So that means if I'm taking a 4-unit calculus class, I should budget 12 hours per week for that class. And sometimes that sounds like a lot of time, right? I mean, you got to go to lecture, you have homework assignments, maybe there's quizzes or discussion sections. But the reason why they make classes 1 unit or 4 units is in part because that's the amount of time you need to spend in order to master the material. And now, being on the other side as an instructor, I routinely see that often the students who struggle most in my classes, it's not that they're not trying hard. The issue is that they haven't given themselves this time. And so, as much as possible, try to make sure that you give yourself a reasonable course load each semester, especially if you're working or you have other obligations. As much as possible, try to budget 3 hours per week per unit of classes you take. And make sure that you also schedule fun time too, to recharge. Everybody needs that. So in addition to scheduling work and classes, give yourself that time you need to also recover and maintain your willpower. Questions on this first point? Okay, next one, be patient and flexible. This one is tough. I am horrible at this. But progress can take time. And so sometimes you just have to be patient, especially when you're in those challenging courses. Maybe you're studying engineering or another discipline that's very challenging. It takes time to learn these things. Progress does not happen overnight. And so it's better to plan and proceed slowly than to rush and overload yourself and burn out. And so you got to give yourself permission to experiment and adjust your goals as you need. Initially, I did not plan to go into teaching right away. When I started out as an engineer, I thought I wouldn't teach till I retired. But later I decided I wanted to adjust my goals. And so I did. And I had to give myself permission to do that. And so, you have to be willing to be flexible. Also, you may not have everything figured out yet, and that's okay. Try to buy yourself some flexibility. Even if you try and fail, you might learn something new, gain some new opportunities. Also, prioritize your goals. Sometimes we get overly ambitious and we want to accomplish too much in too little time. So think about what goals are most important. And if you can only accomplish a few of them, which ones are you willing to give up or put on pause so that you can focus on the others? All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to a couple more points, and then we'll also pause for Max to give out a quick survey to everyone. Number 3, make sure to take care of yourself and your personal goals. So life is not all about career and education. Make sure you also think about your own personal happiness and family and fun. Life is not all about working and taking classes. So, you got to make sure that you also plan in that time to stay sane and to take care of the relationships that matter to you. And remember, everybody needs time to recharge. Nobody can go 110% effort forever. So schedule that time to take care of yourself. Next one, finding your ideal job is a process. I did not land in my perfect job that I stayed at forever right after graduating. Today, it's more and more common for people to have multiple roles over the course of their career. And so, you probably won't land that ideal job immediately when you graduate, but you can still choose jobs that will take you in the general direction that you want to go. I'd like to bring up this nice figure here. This is a Japanese term, ikigai. It's a Japanese idea for a reason for being. And the idea is that you want to try to find job roles that are at the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what you can be paid for. And they take it a step further and say also what the world needs. And if you can find that happy middle ground between all of those places, that will be an area where you can be very successful and make a big impact. Next point, your major isn't permanent. So just for fun, you can see some of my jobs that I had before I joined DVC. And you can see that I did a lot of stuff and it wasn't all chemical engineering. So just because you majored in one thing, that won't stop you from being able to learn and succeed somewhere else. So again, you want to ideally pursue that degree, open that initial door, but once you get out into industry, you can still move around, and that's perfectly okay. So we have just about 12 minutes left, so I did want to pause for just a moment to allow Max to send out a survey to everybody. And so we'll have Max send out his survey real quick, and then we'll give everybody a minute or two to do that. And then we'll finish with our last 5 points and any questions. Max, did you want to share anything else about the survey?
Yeah, I just posted the survey in the chat box, so you all should be able to access that. Shouldn't take too long to fill out, and there's a drop-down menu box for you to pick what this workshop is called. And it will be that first workshop that you should see on your screen. Let's see, which is that planning for success. That'll be the workshop that you all are attending. So if you're wondering which one it was in the drop-down menu, it'll be that first one.
All right, thank you very much, Max. So let's just pause a minute real quick, let everybody fill out that survey, and then we will continue with our last points. Oh, there's a comment, someone doesn't see it. Everybody find the link in the Zoom?
My Zoom is having problems. Let me try and drop it in again. Let me see. Let me try and send it directly to you, Dr. Erickson. Oh, there it is. And Elias put it in there too.
Okay, I am able to open it on my end if I open the link. So yes,
Okay,
looks like that link you sent now works. Thank you, Max.
no worries.
All right, we'll just wait one more minute for everybody to fill that out. Are there any other questions so far as people are filling out the survey? Okay, so let's go ahead and finish up our last few slides here. Oh, there's a hand raised. Yes. Oh, okay, let's go ahead and we'll finish our last few slides here. And then if there are some questions at the end, then we'll use whatever time is left for those questions. So real quick, let's finish up our last couple slides here. So number 6 here, think about the type of work which suits you best. Oh, there's a question about which email we should fill in the survey. Max, if you want to address that.
Yeah, the last part of that is just asking you all if you're attending this workshop for extra credit from your professor. So if your professor had mentioned if you all attend any of these workshops, he or she will give you extra credit. You would list that professor's email because I send a follow-up email to them. But if you didn't have a professor say that, you don't need to put a professor's email there.
All right, thank you. Okay, so number 6 here, think about the type of work which suits you best. So a lot of times we focus so much on a major and an area of interest, we don't necessarily think about what the actual job we're aiming for is like. So I encourage you to think about these questions. Do you want to manage a team? Do you want to work on your own? Do you want to do research? Do you prefer independent work or teamwork? Do you like to build things or crunch data? Do you want to sit in an office or work in a factory? How introverted or extroverted are you? Do you like working with customers? Do you like a fast-paced or a slow-paced environment? How independently do you want to work? And do you want to travel? How much uncertainty and ambiguity do you like? Do you prefer a set path or the unknown? Do you want to work 8 to 5 or do you want more flexibility? And how much work-life balance do you want? Do you want to have the ability to work from home? These are all very good questions to think about when you think about where you want to be in 5 years. You may not be able to get everything you want in 5 years, but you can try to head in the general direction that you are looking for. Number 7, get related experience. Especially if you're not completely sure what you want to do. If you join clubs and extracurricular groups, you can gain a lot of useful skills and also just build a lot of great connections. So I encourage you to explore organizations at DVC and other places to see if you can build your own experience and learn and grow more through these other areas. Next is networking. When you're just starting out, your network may be small, and this might sound kind of silly, but especially as you continue to grow and develop in your career, it's very important to build those relationships with people you worked with, maybe your professors, maybe others that you know, because people can help connect you to new opportunities. And you can also get involved in professional organizations related to your area of interest. Number 9 is also very interesting. You want to look at where the industry is headed. Specifically for engineering, the National Academy of Engineering made these 14 grand challenges. And these are things that the National Academy of Engineers thinks are big problems that need to be addressed in the future. And the idea here is if you develop skills and knowledge that are useful for these challenges, you will be more in demand and you will have more opportunities. Just for fun, here's the list of the 10 grand challenges. Again, you do not need to memorize these, but if one of them pops out and looks interesting, maybe that's something you want to explore more. So you can think about, how would you want to make an impact? What kinds of problems would you want to solve? Finally, last point, consider a graduate degree. I know we had the question earlier about, what do I do to get a graduate degree? And I'm more than happy to talk separately with people if you have specific questions. But one thing a lot of students don't know is that PhD degrees in science and engineering are usually completely free. I did not pay for my PhD. I actually had my PhD funded through teaching assistantships, research fellowships, and other sources. And that's very common in science and engineering. So if you're interested at all in research and getting a very deep expertise in an area, getting an advanced degree might be a good thing for you. Getting a graduate degree can qualify you for a higher salary and higher jobs. But the one thing to think about is more senior jobs generally demand more working hours. So there's a trade-off. You get paid more, you get a fancier job title, but there's also a lot more expected of you. And so for some people, they like that. They want the prestige, they want the money, and that's great. Other people, they want more work-life balance. They want to have more time for themselves. They're okay with a bachelor's degree or not as fancy of a job. You got to do what will work best for you. So I'm happy to talk more about graduate degrees if anyone's interested. You're welcome to shoot me an email if you have more questions. But let's go ahead and wrap up here for today since we're just about out of time. I'd like to thank everybody for coming today and taking the time to make your 5-year plan. I can honestly say that if you take the time now to write down those goals, it will make a big impact. And if you make the progress, make the time every day on those goals, your chances of success are going to be much higher. I'd also encourage you to think about all the resources that DVC offers to help you get started on your goals. And I would encourage you to take a look at, meeting with your academic advisor and the different guided pathways and all the great tools that DVC has that can also help. So once again, thank you very much, everyone, for joining the fun today. Big thank you to Max and everyone who organized these workshops. And we do have just a little bit of time left if there's a couple quick questions. Otherwise, big thank you to everyone for coming. And I wish you all the best with your 5-year plans.
We're going to reach out to you to talk basis about the 5-year plan. Do you want us to email you, or is it okay for us to allocate some of the times you have for office hours?
Either way, yeah, if you're a student in my classes, I'm more than happy to talk goals during office hours. You can also shoot me an email and we can also set up a time or talk via email.
Perfect. Thank you so much.